The World Cup is over for Canada's men's national team, and now the attention turns to what is to come. And it is still a very exciting, very promising time for its players, past, present, and future, as well as what lays ahead for the landscape in this country on the horizon. But if we learned anything during their 3 matches at the World Cup, that excitement is one thing, but to be there at that next level is another. And perhaps the expectations were a little bit higher than they should have been. So let's take this opportunity to try and set some expectations for the future. And let's begin with Oliver Platt and Alistair Johnston. You've already given your pitch. You've explained to Scotland what they are getting in this player. But in terms of what you are expecting from Johnston with his new club, where do you think we see Alistair Johnston? Is it a regular starter? Is that okay? Is it a bench role to begin? How do you see this playing out?
I thought you were about to set expectations for me there when you said my name. I wasn't looking forward to seeing what
you've seen my expectations daily, mate. Don't worry.
In terms of Alistair Johnston, I think it's going to be a situation that depends on whether Juranovic, stays or goes. He's had an excellent World Cup with Croatia. Obviously, that's the player that's going to be in front of Johnston in the right back position at Celtic. So I would imagine if he stays, we'll see Johnston probably have to compete for his place, bide his time, be a little bit patient in terms of getting those minutes to begin with in the second half of the season. But I do think that particularly going to the Scottish Premiership, it's not a top 5 league. And so I think Alistair Johnston is going to be ready straight away to compete at that level, to play at that level and to look absolutely fine. Whether he's the starting guy going into Champions League games next season, I think that's probably the bigger question. But it will depend, I think, on how that position shakes out in terms of what Celtic do with the players they've already got there, as well as Johnston's arrival.
Jordan?
Yeah, I think for me, it's going to be similar when we talk about another player, but I think it's just sinking his teeth in when he gets there. I think what you would want for any Canadian player is not taking 3 or 6 or 9 months to get settled. It's really getting settled with the culture, getting settled with the team, getting settled with training sessions, getting settled with matches pretty early, and then keeping that consistent. So I guess simply put is starting well and then continuing that through into games, because I think that's when it really matters, right? I think it's different when you're playing at home and it's a bit more comfortable, or just playing in Canada. It's very controlled, or the US, it's North America, it's pretty controlled. But when you go to Europe, it's just a different gravy. There's other factors that go into it. It's not just playing and showing up on a Sunday or a Saturday to play a game. It's how you're preparing, how you're sleeping, what you're doing on outside of the pitch. That stuff plays way more than just the game. So I think it's for the young players or players going to these type of environments, it's just getting in quick and making the most of it as soon as you can.
Especially making a move in January. Oftentimes for players that make the move at this time of year, it takes them a little bit longer to settle. So I think it's a realistic expectation to expect Alistair Johnston to work his way into a starting role come the start of next season. As for now, Ollie said it, Juranovic, he's had a great World Cup for Croatia.
Yes,
I'm to be honest with you, I'm just not sure what their plans are. To sell the player now, or is it to sell the player in the summer? So January or the summer, I think that will go a long way to determining how quickly Johnston gets into that team.
Back to Jordan, and I know the caution is for Alistair Johnston to avoid the pubs in Glasgow, but for Ismael Kone, I think some Canadian supporters will be hesitant, I think, after seeing just the way things went for Richie Laryea at Nottingham Forest at the beginning, and now understanding it's different circumstances and a push for promotion and all that. But Kone is a big name for this team, and he is still very young. He's still very green. What are your expectations for Ismael at Watford?
I think my expectations are pretty simple. Not easy to do, but simple. Be in and around the squad. I know he's a young boy. I know he's only 20, but just getting around the squad is what he needs to be doing. Be in the 18, be a sub, sometimes starting. It's not dropping off and being 25th or 30th man for Watford. Can he be in and around the squad? Can he try to take bigger players that are playing and fill that role and come into the squad? I think that's what's going to get the most out of him, obviously. I think going into maybe the U23s or whatever that might be, it's just different. If he can go and sink his teeth in and play at the highest level, I think that's what would really set him apart early on.
Gareth?
I think he's ready. I think that Watford needs central midfield players. Look, there was a learning curve over the course of last season. Growing into his role with CF Montreal, I think he exceeded expectations. What is this guy? Is he a Is he a $10 million player? Is he a $20 million player? Is he a $40 million player? We're about to find out, right? And look, a lot of young players get some burn and they get played at the league championship level. You know, he has a manager, Slaven Bilic. He probably likes a little bit more consistency in his team, probably likes to rely on experience, but this is a team with lots of young players. It's kind of like in their MO to find these good young players and let them, you know, kind of thrive within that environment. So we'll see. I think it's realistic to think that he's going to contribute pretty soon in this team. They have to, don't they?
Yeah, I do
Ollie, what do you
too.
think?
Look, I think he's obviously much younger than Lorrea, so time is on his side more than it was with Richie. And if he needs a bit of time to get settled and not have too many minutes early on, that's okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But I just rate the player so highly that I think it's going to happen quicker than that. I think he's going to make an impact and compete for some minutes in pretty short order here. So we'll see how that goes. There's a lot of off-field adjustment, like Jordan talked about it with Alistair Johnston. Which I think is going to be a big part of it. But the talent of the player, to me, this is someone who can make an impact quickly.
Jordan, go ahead. Muted, mate. We got to go. We got to reset. We got to reset this. There it is. Just building some suspense.
Smokes.
That's all.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. With 19 foreigners on Watford, I think for him coming in, and they have a need for him, just playing in the 8 with a few injuries, I think he can come in and really just set the stage. And I think young players nowadays that play with poise, they're coveted. Like, no one wants that 32-year-old or 33. Or if you come in 20 and you're playing like a big boy, you're playing. So Watford is known for getting players to other destinations. He can do that early. The sky's the limit for him.
And other clubs wanted him as well, so they must have, you know, said the right things. And he needs to be pretty encouraged about what his role and potential platform going forward looks like.
Well, let's zoom out a little bit, Gareth. And speaking of role, we expect Ismael to have a pretty big role for the Canadian men's national team going forward. Do you think that's as early as this upcoming Gold Cup? Because this is the question we're going to debate over and over and over again until a ball is kicked in that tournament. Does John Herdman try and win the Gold Cup and go veteran heavy, not much change? Or do you think it is time for players like Ismael, Kone, and that next wave to really factor in and the continental competition?
See, Canada is already a young team. I think there's like this, you know, this perception like they're old and they're going to have to get rid of all these players and bring in the new crop. Like the nucleus of this team, they're all in their 20s. Like Atiba, I have no idea if he's going to play for Canada again. I'd love to see him go out and have like a game just to celebrate him and his career, played in Canada. So I would hold off on him retiring as of right now. But obviously there's going to be a natural transition, like the players, you know, on the tail end of his career. So Kone playing alongside Eustachio in the midfield, there's a natural succession plan right there. Where you don't necessarily have it is at center back with Vittoria. You have it at goalkeeper with Borjan, but goalkeepers can play longer. So I think young players are naturally going to get more of a look in this team. But I just wonder as well how many players might not commit for the Gold Cup next summer. Just coming off a World Cup year, all that they put in from an international perspective, it's going to be the first real kind of break, time off to actually kind of disengage a little bit next summer. So I fully expect them to all be there for the Nations League. I do have some questions about what that squad might look like come next summer.
Yeah, and there will be plenty of time to digest that a little bit further. But what is happening in this immediate vicinity, what could be happening in the coming days, coming weeks, is Tajon Buchanan, Ollie, where we expected that rumor mill to start churning. And look, he hasn't been with Club Bruges for very long, but it seems like there are a lot of interested parties in big leagues who are after this man's services. What are your expectations for where he may land?
Well, it's going to be a big club, I think. Like, I think that's the step that it would have to be for Tajon Buchanan for it to make sense for him to leave Club Bruges. I would just urge caution on this one personally. Like, he hasn't been in Belgium for all that long. He's going to continue to play Champions League football with that club, obviously. I think it's still a good place for him right now. Look, if a big club comes in and makes a great offer and, you know, makes a compelling pitch as to how they see Tajon being a big part of their future, obviously, you're not going to turn that down, and the World Cup can produce those kinds of opportunities, particularly when you play as well as Tajon did. I just think, you know, the people advising him, the people around him, be careful, don't rush it. It's going to come for this player because he's got that talent. I don't think they necessarily need to go headfirst into it in January.
Jordan.
It's just such a slippery slope with footy, Ollie, right? Like so many friends I know it's about timing, right? Timing is everything. But sometimes you can move to a club too soon and then you're not playing, or you could stay at a club, you could stay at Club Bruges, and then God forbid, knock on wood, like Tajon gets an injury, and then it just takes him another year or two to come back into form. And it's like, well, I had this deal on the table from a Premier League club or Serie A, and that's gone forever. Or it seems like it's gone forever. It's just such a slippery slope, because I've known players that have done, hey, let me make that move quick, and then you're on the bench, but you're also at such a high level. And then I've also known players that they said, you know what, the next transfer window I'll go for, and the next transfer window never came. So it's such a slippery slope, and you just never really know, right, with footy. And that's the exciting part about it, but it's also something to keep people up at night, because you just never really know.
I when it comes to this speculation, I kind of take a step back. Like, there's a lot of people that think they're Fabrizio Romano out there, and a lot of it, the rumors get put out by agents. Clearly, Buchanan wants more money. He's probably punching above his weight what his contract actually is right now. So I'm kind of with Ollie here. Like, take your patience, plot out your next step. But if you can get some extra cash from Bruges in the meantime, then go for it. He's going to do what's best for him, and I totally understand that that's the way that this business works.
Well, for our last expectation to set, I'm going to come back to Jordan to get the CPL professionals' perspective on this, because we saw 2 Canadians in John Herdman's team for this World Cup. Fast forward 4 years, names we've not heard of, perhaps some alum that have left and are starting to ply their trade elsewhere. What are your expectations for how many CPL alums will be in John Herdman's team? Is it a couple? Is it 4, 5, 6? Is it more? What do you think, Jordan?
Well, let's double the number that you said, Jenkins. Let's double it.
12.
You said 2? No. Sorry. You said 2. You're like 12? I was like, no. I was like, man, I failed grade 9 math. I didn't want to. No, 4.
I threw a lot of numbers at you. I like 4.
4 would be perfect. And whatever, 23, 26 man squad would be perfect. 15% of the squad. The CPL is a young man's league. I know you have some vets like myself playing, but it's all about the young players. It's all about developing. That's why you have rules that you have. You're supposed to have U21 players. They're supposed to play a certain amount of minutes. It's that foundation that has never been here in Canada before, to have that 19, 20, 21-year-old to still be at home, still be on Canadian soil before you make a bigger move. And that could coincide with a 2026 Canadian squad where you have a few of those gems. I know right now any center back training, man, there's a gaping hole in the men's national team to come in and do a job. Like, I would just be doing headers at home if I was 20, just practicing, looking over my shoulder, making sure you're ready, because now you have Herdman saying, hey, I'm looking at the CPL. I'm looking at 8 teams to try to catch a fix. So I would say 4. 4 would be a great number. You have 2 guys maybe that are really close to the squad in the 18, but yeah, 4 is looking good.
We got Lucas McNaughton, who's already been in the camp. He could be the next one. Victor Laturi just made the move, and Marco Carducci, who just inked another 3-year deal with Calvary, in Calgary, has said he wants to be in that group in 2026. So it's certainly going to be very exciting to track that progression in the Canadian Premier League.